Four Horsemen Publications is back at Indy PopCon with 14 incredible authors and more books than ever before. Meet and get books signed by Erica Lance, Valerie Willis, J.M. Paquette, Erik Deckers, Rick Hines, Morgan Moreau and Katie Jenkins, Nick Smith, P.C. Nottingham, Andy T. Hansen, Chelsea Burton Dunn, and K.N. Fitzwater. Catch them all at the Four Horsemen booth at Indy PopCon. PopCon Indy runs June 25th through the 29th, 2025 at the Indianapolis Convention Center. Get more information and order tickets at popcon.us/popcon-indy or click the link in this episode's show notes. Imagine walking into your boss's office and giving notice because your writing has become your primary revenue stream, or your podcast is successful enough that you can quit your day job, or maybe having your marketing on autopilot so you can spend your time on the art career you love rather than on marketing. Are you a creative person who's great at what you do, but marketing makes you freeze? You're not alone. I help passionate, purpose-driven creatives overcome fear, find their brand voice, and build a marketing strategy that works for them. Oh yeah, I also make it easy and painless. It's never too late to grow the business you've been dreaming about. Book an introductory call with me, Rob Southgate, at southgatesmallbusiness.com today. And let's take the pain out of marketing together. Welcome to Ink Blots, the show where I interview authors about their lives, writing, and the books they love. Be sure to follow the Ink Blots podcast on Substack. Not only can you listen to the latest episodes, but our Substack also has interview transcriptions and links to books and other items that we talk about on the show. If you like what we're doing, please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and on YouTube. It really helps us and our sponsors out. Oh, and leave comments. We really do read and respond to every one. Now, let's get on with the show. Welcome to Ink Blots. I'm Rob Southgate. Today I have with me author Erik Deckers, who is the reason I have Erik on today, other than the fact that he's a fantastic writer, and we're going to talk all about his books and other stuff today. He is also one of the authors that is going to be at Indy PopCon 2025. I better say the year, because people might listen to this 3 years from now and go, why isn't he here? But he'll be at Indy. Yeah, he'll be there at Indy PopCon. It's this month. It's June of 2025. So if you're near Indianapolis or love Erik so much, you got to go book those tickets to Indianapolis, and you can meet him in person and get signatures. And I think you're on panels and all sorts of stuff. Yes. So Erik, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to talk to you.
Me too. Glad to be here.
Okay, let's just get right into it. I have questions for you, Erik. So let's start out with, since the audience doesn't really know you yet, why don't you tell people kind of who you are, how we ended up here?
Okay, so I am originally from Indiana. I grew up there, lived there for 45 years, and just moved to Orlando almost 10 years ago. But I've been a newspaper humor columnist in Indiana, and I've been writing humor for over 30 years, and got to know the folks at Four Horsemen when it was first starting. And I had pitched the idea of republishing my Mackinac Island novel. And they said, sure, if you write 2 more within 2 years. And I said, that would be lovely. And that was 4 years ago. And
hey!
And my second book is coming out this year, and I'm starting ideas on the third book. So you're a typical writer where we say 2 years, and 4 years later we're still trying to get the second book. Exactly.
I gotcha.
It's like Douglas Adams in Deadlines. Remember he said he loves Deadlines because of the whooshing sound they make when they whiz by. So it's the same for me.
So, all right, Erik, I'm going to ask you a few questions here. First of all, you said you were a humor columnist. What area of Indiana were you in?
Grew up in Muncie.
Okay.
And moved to northern Indiana for a while, and then lived in Indianapolis for 10 years before we left.
So you might have fans that come up to you in Indianapolis. You never know.
Oh, that would be lovely. I would like some fans.
So what got you started in writing? I mean, and especially being a humor columnist, what made you say, not only do I want to write, but I'm funny?
I started writing in college at Ball State University and worked for the newspaper. And when I moved up to Syracuse, Indiana, and got married, I had written a couple of essays that my wife thought were kind of funny. And so I met the owner of two very small newspapers in Elkhart County, which is kind of a northern county, and said, "Hey, would you ever want a humor columnist?" And he said, "Sure. Will you do it for free?" I said, "Sure." And so he said, "Perfect. I can afford
And he said, "I'm
that."
really interested now."
Yeah, exactly. And so I had no idea how to do it. I had no idea how to write a column. I just wrote another funny essay. It was over 1,000 words long. They should be 750, and it was really bad. And I didn't know that. I was just so proud because I had done it. But I stayed with it because Bill gave me the time and space to figure things out.
Yeah,
And
very lucky.
After talking to people and reading about it and how to do it, I got better and better, and my writing got tighter. And so I still publish in those papers, and I still do it for free because he gave me the big break that let me figure out I could be funny. And
Wow.
so just a lot of reading and a lot of studying. I don't know if you can see the books behind me, but I've got a lot of writing books and humor writing books, and I spent a lot of time with those. But Bill Nitch gave me that break to become the kind of writer that I am, and I just expanded out into books and radio plays and stage plays and sitcom shows and movies and more books. And I now, as a result, I own a content marketing agency where I ghostwrite blog articles for companies and books for people.
Wow. I'm not going to ask too much about that because you're ghostwriting, but I do love that. What a great story. And that is very inspirational because, I mean, when you're saying you got the break, but you stayed with it, I think that's where I find the inspiration, because a lot of people might fall into it, realize, and give up, or just tamp on and be terrible for a while and then get fired. But you worked at it. I love that. One time, speaking of horror columnists, my wife and I had started a zine. It was called the Dead Elvis Fan Club, and we made it 3 issues. But we got international attention. We ended up being interviewed by the BBC. We ended up in all these magazines. Wow. And it got really great reviews by the zine world. Talk about being famous in a weird bubble. But I sent a copy to Dave Barry. Okay. And this is before the Dave show and all that. Like, we'd been in Miami. I'd read his column. I thought he was funny. I sent it to him and I said, "Hey, I just wanted to share something we wrote. I read your stuff when I was there. It was funny. I thought you'd like this." And he writes me back and he says, "I love to know what kind of creeps are out there reading my columns. Keep going." And I was like, it was the perfect Dave Barry response. And yeah, I love that. I really do love that. So here's a question and this does not have to be columnists, but in humor, who are your top 3 humor writers right now? I know it changes. I know 20 minutes from now, you're going to go, "Oh, I didn't say," or you don't have to try to impress me and go, "Well, of course it's Mark Twain." I mean, you don't. Who are the top 3 in your head right now?
P.G. Wodehouse, always one of the tops. Douglas Adams, always one of the tops. 15 years ago, I would have said Dave Barry, but I started sounding too much like him, so I had to stop reading him. But now it's Christopher Moore, M-O-O-R-E. He's a humor novel writer about paranormal things.
Oh, yeah.
But not the sparkly vampire paranormal, but rather, things take place in modern times, in modern cities like San Francisco. He writes about vampires, about death, the being, not the...
Yeah, the being, death.
Yeah. And a lot of those books sort of intertwine and line up with each other.
Very cool. Are you a paranormal guy?
No.
So you're a humor guy, not a paranormal guy.
Correct. And
guess what? You don't need to be a paranormal guy to appreciate something like that, right?
Yeah. And Chris Moore is just hilarious. I met him once at a book signing in Portland, Oregon, and got to talk with him for a little bit.
Were you at Powell's?
I
know one bookstore in Portland.
Yeah,
I know one bookstore. We've been there multiple times, but
I think it was a Barnes and Noble.
Okay. All right. Someday you can go back, get in that Powell's.
Yeah, I've been to Powell's, and they had one of my social media books. They had my personal branding book called Branding Yourself. And I took it up to the front desk and I said, "Hey, I'm the author. Can I sign this?" And kind of, sure, whatever. And so I signed it and said, "Whoever finds this, email me and let me know. And I'll send you something else." And I never heard from whoever bought it. Hopefully somebody bought it and just ignored the message rather than nobody bought it.
You know what? A couple of years ago, there was an author that I was talking to who did a similar thing. They found their books in a random bookstore, and they went and they signed all the books without telling anybody, and did something like that. Like, if you found this is really me, and contact me, and you win whatever. And I thought that was such a cool idea. I have yet to find one when I look, but it's a cool idea, Eric.
Some of the Barnes and Nobles actually have author-signed stickers.
Right.
So that if you walk in and sign them, they'll put that on there.
But in this case, the person was unimpressed. So
yeah,
probably
drove the value down.
That's my life too. So okay, you're going back to Indianapolis. What is the thing you're like most excited to do, or see, or eat? Like, what's your favorite place to eat there?
Honestly, part of the reason I'm going back is my dad still lives in Muncie, so I'm going to go see him. I am looking forward to Basbo Pizza.
Basbo. Where is that? What town? There
are a couple locations. One is downtown on Mass Ave. Another one is on, it's in Broad Ripple on 62nd. And Bazbeaux, Basbo. But they make some of the best pizza in Indianapolis. There's also Pizza King, which serves a tavern-style pizza. That's the ingredients all the way out to the edge, and then they
I'm from Chicago, Eric. You're not telling me anything here.
Yeah.
And the square cut does make it taste better.
Yes, exactly. So those are my two favorites, and I'm looking forward to that. If anybody is visiting from out of town and you don't want pizza, look for a place, usually just any kind of bar or tavern or place that serves burgers, and get a breaded pork tenderloin. That's Indiana's official state sandwich. Like the House and Senate voted on it in Indiana. And
so, Eric, I have a follow-up to that.
Okay.
One of the episodes, look for it in the ink blots, I interview Andrew Najberg, who's a horror writer. Okay? And I ask the question, you're coming to Indiana for Books and Brews too. It's ironically in Indiana, right outside of it. And I said, is there anything you're excited to do? And he said, I'm a huge pork tenderloin fan, and everyone keeps telling me there's a pork tenderloin sandwich that I have to have. You just nailed it. So I'm going to tell him, okay, this is what it is, man. Get that breaded pork tenderloin. That sounds amazing.
Yeah. So it's a regular tenderloin, but they
breaded.
Just smash the hell out of it with a meat tenderizer. And so it flattens out and expands. I can't. My camera will not show. It's bigger than my head, and it's just put on a regular bun. And so imagine something that's a quarter of an inch thick, but it's about 8 inches across, with this
a regular
tiny
bun.
Little bun on it. It looks comical, like a fat guy wearing a tiny hat, and like you're supposed to eat it like this. The best way is just cut it up into thirds and stack it. But I always do it with mayo, mustard, pickles, and onions, and it's amazing.
That sounds absolutely incredible. So, horror writing. Well, I'm sorry. I'm thinking about Andrew and horror. Comedy writing or comedic writing, because comedy writing is different than humor writing.
Yes.
What is it that you look for in a well-written horror story? Oh, I'm saying horror again.
Yeah, I don't read horror. It gives me
so that question I blew it. That question means nothing to you. What do you look for in a well-written humor story? It's because it's humor and horror. I'm seeing the H in my head, and I keep getting them confused.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of it is the best humor doesn't make jokes. Like if you remember or ever saw, I think it was still Harvard Lampoon's Board of the Rings.
Yeah, I remember
parody. That. To me, that's not great humor. Even though it's the Lampoon, it's not great humor because all they're doing is changing the names to be funny.
Right.
Board of the Rings and Dildo Baggins. And, that's funny the first couple of times you see it, but not 50,000 words.
Yeah.
And so if you rely on joke names to make things funny, that's bad. The best thing is to put, to kind of follow the fish out of water. You put normal people in a weird situation or weird people in a normal situation, and you see how they react. And so the humor comes from the circumstance, not that you think, oh, I'm gonna stick a joke in here and make a punchline, with puns. That's not good humor. That's fine for jokes and telling jokes, but that's not great long form humor.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't stick around. That is for sure. It's funny because I was going to bring up another one since you brought up that Lampoon one. They have a book, Lord of the Rings one that they did called The Wobbit, and I agree. It was just they changed the names. Okay, but a friend of mine wrote one called The Wobbit. His name is Paul A. Erickson. It's legit funny. So if you're looking for The Wobbit, get the Paul Erickson one. There you go. See, I got that plug in there for him. If I can find a copy, I'll send it to you, Eric, because I think you think it's really funny. When you were writing your column, did you have like a theme throughout, or was it just today I'm going to write about this? And it would you'd kind of get inspired and just write from there.
It really varies week to week. Last week, I learned about the existence of the Dull Men's Club.
Okay, let's hear about this.
So it's not even a club. It's just a loose amalgamation of people who like to talk about things that other people will find dull. And there's a Facebook page.
Wait, the Dull Men's Club.
The Dull, D-U-L-L, the Dull Men's Club. And so there's one that's just the Dull Men's Club. There's another one that has a registered trademark in the title.
What?
And they both have about 1.3 million members in the Facebook group.
Wow.
And one of the things that when I first started researching it, and I've since joined both groups, but one guy had posted a picture of a bottle of natural gas that his grandfather had purchased in the 40s. And it still had gas in it. And he smelled it, and he said there was no odor. And was this because it didn't have mercaptan in it, which is the chemical that makes natural gas smell the way it does? Or could it have decayed? And this launched into a whole big discussion of people saying, well, they had to put it in there because they started putting it there in 1938. And so that was certainly within the time. And so it does decay and blah, blah, blah. And so this is all very, very boring, right?
Yes.
But this is the point of the Dull Men's Club, is you find these little things that somebody's going to hear it and go, oh, wow, I didn't know that.
And
right?
They just kind of drill down on it.
Yeah. But what's even more fascinating to me, and they don't talk about this, there are people who study this kind of thing. Somebody figured out that mercaptan decays inside the bottle, and that it could render natural gas odorless. There are some scientists somewhere that have paid attention to this and have done the research in the lab, and they've probably written papers about it. And so if you think that the thing I just shared with you is dull, there are people who devote their careers to that idea. And so I just find that utterly fascinating.
Can you imagine all those science nerds get together, and then there's one little table of these guys, and they're like, those are the boring guys.
Yes. And
wow.
So last week's column was all about that. This week, in fact, tonight is column night. I write it every Thursday night. I'm talking about should you maintain and clean your gas barbecue grill like a nerd, or do you just let fire take care of it after every use? You just crank up the heat and let it incinerate all the leftover meat and then call it done. This is an argument that my wife and I have because we're getting rid of my old gas grill, giving it to a friend, and she says, you really need to clean it up. We should have been cleaning it up all this time. It's like, I'm giving it away.
Yeah, you're giving it away. Now, that's the other part of the argument, though, Eric.
Yeah.
Because is it, when you're maintaining it, should you clean it or not?
Well, and
I'm not going to tell you my thoughts on it. This is not about me.
She saw a YouTube video that said you have to take everything apart and wipe it down and keep it as close to pristine as you can. And my thought is, this is what fire is for.
Well, and it also adds flavor.
Yes, exactly. Those are flavor crystals.
But you have to be careful because it also adds bacteria. So you got to figure out what that balance is. And I also have thoughts about whether you clean it before you give it to them. But I'm not going to share it here because this is not the Dull Men's podcast. Although now I'm thinking we might be onto something. Okay, I don't want to run out of time before. I want to hear about Mackinac Island Nation. I want you to give us kind of the lowdown on that. That's your first book with Horsemen Publications, which will be at PopCon Indy. And then you have another book coming out in December, which I'm going to have you on other shows about that, which is Utopia. That one, I think it's on pre-order right now, in fact. So you can go to fourhorsemenpublications.com, look up Erik Deckers, and pre-order Utopia. And hey, I'll give them a plug at Four Horsemen. You get a discount if you pre-order. I think it's 15% off. So that's a good deal. So we'll hear about Utopia on another show. But this one, I want to hear about Mackinac Island Nation.
I will say that the two tie in, although they are set about 50 years apart.
All right.
So Mackinac Nation takes place in 2015, and Mackinac Island is a real island off of Michigan. If you ever meet somebody from Michigan, you ask them where they live, they always hold up their right hand, right?
Yep.
So Mackinac Island is like right above where your middle finger would be. And I decided, this did not really happen, and some people seem to think maybe this happened. It didn't happen. But that that a 200-year-old peace treaty required that the island would be released by the United States and given to whoever lives there. And at the time, and this was all part of the treaty that ended the War of 1812, and everyone thought, oh, it's just going to be the natives who live there, so we're just going to give it to them in 200 years. Well, they didn't know that it was going to be a bunch of rich Republicans who lived there, and they suddenly find themselves without a nation.
Okay.
And so they're waiting for Congress to repatriate the island, but Congress being Congress is going to take 2 years to do this. And so the island has to function as an independent country for the next 2 years. And the guy who is the reluctant president wants to just keep his head down, keep things the way they are until next together. Other people want it to become a military outpost for the North Koreans or the Russians. Canada wants it to become a sovereign nation or a sovereign protectorate under Canada rule. And so there are all kinds of shenanigans going on. And it's a satire. It's, humorous satire, satirical book that looks at sort of the state of politics in the U.S. as it was happening kind of as a microcosm on Mackinac Island.
On Mackinac, yeah. Have you been to Mackinac?
I have, several times. My wife and I used to go in the late 90s, and so I sort of had the idea of the question, what would happen if these guys became independent? It rattled around in my head for about 15 years before I finally decided to start writing it down.
We went there a few years ago, and my biggest takeaway is it smells like horse crap.
Yep.
Because they don't have cars there.
Not at all.
And wow, the horse crap smell.
Yes.
It's like stepping back in time and stepping in something, because that is brutal. But they're known for their fudge.
Yes.
So that is really funny. That sounds like a great book. I'm so glad that Four Horsemen publishes you.
Yeah.
So Utopia is a connected, but it's not an official sequel, correct?
Correct. So Utopia, and I'll be very, very brief.
Give us a brief one on that. We'll go into it more detail on another show.
Imagine what happened in the pandemic, the way it got politicized, happens again, only everyone is surprised to find that the new pandemic has about a 99% mortality rate. Oh. And so when the book opens, it's 10 years after the pandemic, and all the conservatives in the world have died.
Okay.
And so the liberals are left to run things on their own, but because they don't have any opposition, they have screwed it all up. And so I focus on the fictional town of Appleseed, Ohio, and everything takes place there. And people who have read Mackinac Island will recognize connections to characters from the other book. Like one of the minor characters in Mackinac Island gets name dropped as a political pundit in Utopia.
The
daughter of a minor character gets she gets a scene in Utopia. So it stands alone. You don't have to read the first book to read the second one, but if you've read the first book and then you go read Utopia, those connections will
There's some little Easter eggs hidden in there. That's so fun. Well, Erik, this was really great. Go see Erik at PopCon Indy in Indianapolis. What are the dates? It's June
27, 28, 29. That's my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday. I'm saying it early. We'll pretend it was that. Listen to this, Erik, listen to this on your birthday. And you'll go like, how appropriate that he said happy birthday. But go buy his book. Go get some signatures, get some selfies with him. Bring him some tavern-style pizza. Show him what's what. And Erik, this was just really great. What is the best place for people to engage with you?
I'm on Threads, which is the Instagram network. Just Erik Deckers, ErikDeckers. That's my handle there. I'm also on Instagram, but I don't use it very much.
Okay.
Or go to erikdeckers.com. That's my humor blog. All my columns get published there.
Oh, great. Great. I encourage everybody to go to that. And I will also put this in the show notes, so it makes it really easy for people to find you, engage with you. But that's wonderful. In fact, I think I already follow you on Threads, but if I don't, watch me pop up today. So, Erik, this was really great. Thank you so much for being on. Good luck with all this, and good luck. I hope you don't take this the wrong way. I hope you sell out in Indianapolis.
I would love to.